Hello. I have already recorded a video in German about how to philosophize, uh, how to learn philosophizing from Heidegger and Gendlin. And I realized that the automatic translation um, of that video into English is not so good, and therefore I decided to record now version in English. Um, the German version is more systematic and more in detail, but what's very important is to explain some words, some central words Heidegger is using. And I'm relating to one book, a specific book, a specific volume of the Gesamtausgabe, collected works, which has the title in German Der Satz vom Grund. And the English translation, there exists an English translation into English, is Principle of Reason. And I would like to explain what he says about the principle of reason and how he proceeds, and in how far that resembles TAE, but only a little bit in this video. And then I will add something which is not in my German video, and that's about well, some relations to kind of human potential movement, because the topic of this principle of reason is at the end it has to do with what the ground is, what a ground is, and to feel grounded is also a topic, a common topic in the human potential movements in therapy and personal development and so on. And this can be connected. This can be yeah, it can even be connected. I mean, one might work on this topic of being grounded by reading and understanding this book by Heidegger, and also by specific approaches of this movement. And so in the end, people think Heidegger is very much, if one reads Heidegger, one gets very much into the head, so to speak. And Heidegger is always in the mind, and that's all mindfuck, so to speak. And at least with this book, with this content, it's the very opposite. And that's also interesting to see, I think. So there is a principle of reason, I think, since Leibniz, and that principle goes: nothing is without reason. And in this sentence, the principle of reason is nothing is without reason. There are two main words, central words: principle and reason. And both are bad translations, but there was no other choice, because the German words just have a specific broader meaning. The word Satz, which is translated as principle, has the meanings a principle, a sentence. Very often the common meaning is sentence, but it has also the meaning of a leap. And the word Grund, or what is here translated as reason, in German, the word Grund doesn't only mean reason or cause, but it also means like a a base or a ground or soil, something like that. And the whole work by Heidegger is actually a criticism at our modern times. He says our modern times are under the rule of the principle of reason or ground, and we have decided to understand that as reason alone. So we are trying to find to explain everything perfectly, to find all the causes for something. And we think if we have all the causes for something, that's a base for our living. That's what we need to have. And therefore we have this technological culture, so to speak. And our way of thinking is calculative thinking. Heidegger calls that calculative thinking, and there is an alternative which he in German is called besinnliches Denken. Calculative thinking is rechnendes Denken and besinnliches Denken would be in English is often translated as meditative thinking or contemplative thinking. And actually this claim that we are grounded, so to speak, if we inquire all the causes, if we investigate for all of the causes and gather that, that's questionable, I think. And then Heidegger does a kind of a TAE step or TAE move. TAE is thinking at the edge, which I cannot explain here. It's a method, a system method to focusing and developed by Eugene T. Gendlin. And this step consists in underlining a word and inquiring what that word means, and then thinking about how can one replace that word with if that word wouldn't exist, how can what other word would work here? And Heidegger does that with the word reason. So nothing is without reason. He replaces reason by why. So he has the sentence, nothing is without why. And then he associates a sentence by Angelus Silesius. That was a German mystic, actually. The name means, Angelus means angel or messenger, but an angel is a divine messenger. And Silesius means, or Silesius, I think in English you might say, is a Silesian. He comes from Silesia. And he learned from Jakob Böhme, who is better known, perhaps, another German mystic. And he said, the rose is without why. It blossoms because it blossoms. And so, and this quote makes sense to me and to Heidegger too. And so he builds on that and he says, okay, seems that Angelus Silesius has found that not the principle of reason was nothing is without reason, nothing is with, and now we have nothing is without why, but Angelus Silesius says the rose is without why. It blossoms because it blossoms. And so Heidegger concludes there is another ground than the reason, and that's the ground Angelus Silesius points to, And this change from reason alone to ground is the Satz, is the leap. Or we might say in focusing terms, a shift, so to speak. And then Heidegger makes another TAE step or TAE move, because he also works with the emphasis, and he changes the normal emphasis, he says, is nothing is without ground. And he said we can change the emphasis, and then we have nothing is without ground. And that changes something for him. He hears a kind of resonance or belonging together between is and ground. And then there is also a TAE step to work with identity, or to with the sentence A is B. And Heidegger also does that by saying, or by postulating, being is ground. Yeah, but as far as being is concerned, that one, I have to add a few things, because what Heidegger understands by being is quite special. Usually we assume a kind of presence. Something is means it is present, or we associate, or the facticity of it, the mere facticity of it, and the common quality of all things, very, very different things they all are. They share that quality of being. But Heidegger means something different. And that's that differs between early Heidegger and later Heidegger. The early Heidegger thought being is a kind of the intelligibility of things, or the background of implicit meaning, one would say in Gendlin's terms. And later, and I think this is also in the this book, Principle of Reason, belongs to the later time. It changed a bit, and he says things like being can withdraw itself as ground, or and can reveal itself as reason. That would fit to the later Heidegger. And so he would say that the reason why in our modern times the ground appears as reason only is because being does that, so to speak. Not really does that, but it's a kind of change in that comes from being. And that's a bit difficult to digest, I think. That's hard. And I think what is easy to digest about that is that he doesn't want to put all the responsibility on the subject, because he also talks about forgetfulness of being, but he doesn't want to mean that it's because the subject doesn't have something in mind or so, or doesn't remind themselves of that or so. And so the intention, I think, is okay, and I will explain that in a minute. He doesn't want to enforce the feeling of separation between the person as a subject and the rest of the world, so to speak. Yeah, and there is another important term in that and topic in that book that also belongs to this difference between calculative thinking and meditative thinking or contemplative thinking, and that is the opposite of this Gegenständigkeit, of this objectivity is the English word in the dictionary, but I don't think it's so good. Yeah, and something stands against me. That's the modern way of experiencing myself in the world, the Cartesian way, so to speak. And Heidegger wants to present an alternative, and that's called Gegenüber. And I think if you come from Gendlin, it's very easy because it's interaction first, I think, what Gendlin calls interaction first. And a translation for this Gegenüber is a bit difficult, but I think the word encounter is not so bad, especially if you think in terms of the human potential movement. It means an encounter, a non-dual encounter. That's a Gegenüber. And he says, Heidegger says, the ancient Greeks have experienced themselves that way. And they were overcome by things. They didn't face them like with this separation, but they were overcome. And it's a little bit like the experience of a surprise, like a being affected or so. And if I explain that in a Gendlinian way, a good example is this interaction first, or being affected or overcome is when I meet new people. With each person, I become different. I become a different person. With one person I am funny. With another person I'm serious. With another person I am blocked, or I'm open. And this is a kind of, it overcomes me. I don't do that. I don't change myself or so. It overcomes me. And this is also true, I think, for cultural context, like when I talk in English, I'm different than when I talk in German. It also overcomes me. I don't just decide now I will become this way when I use that language. And so Heidegger thinks it's like with this idea of zeitgeist, there is a kind of cultural atmosphere or so in an epoch, and this is not done by me, and so he explains it by, okay, it comes from being in a way, but he doesn't mean there is a kind of entity that is being and does something, but he just wants to overcome the idea that it comes from me. It's kind of like the antidote to it. If I usually think, oh, it comes from me, and now he says, no, it comes from there, I can kind of get in between if I hold both together, so to speak. And now I would like to connect that to the human potential movement. For instance, in therapies, the topic of feeling grounded or not is a common topic. And Gendlin, who developed the focusing method also TAE, thinking at the edge, also developed a form of dream work, and that's in his book, Let Your Body Interpret Your Dreams. And he says, in our culture, in the Western culture, very many people dream about their relation to the ground. Many people dream like they are in the top floor of a building, or and there is no staircase, they cannot get down, and so on. Or they dream about an airplane that cannot land, and so on. And his explanation is that might have to do with the early relationship to the mother, because in our culture, babies are not carried around by the mother. They are not in contact with their mother, and later that extends to the feeling, to the relation to the ground. And if one, for instance, dreams about being in the top floor of a building, there is also a tentative interpretation. I mean, in focusing dream work, dreams are not interpreted from outside. People interpret it by themselves, and others can assist or accompany. And at the end, let your body interpret your dreams. At the end, the body helps to not being confined to one's prejudices with interpreting a dream. But there are some suggestions which sometimes work. And a building is often a metaphor of the body. And so the top floor of a building would be associated to here, to the head. And so being in the top floor would be mean kind of being centered in the brain, in thinking, in the mind, and also calculative thinking. I would associate that to the head or brain or so. And if I hear like the rose blossoms because it blossoms, that brings me down a little bit. That belongs to not to the head, so to speak, and is rather grounding. Mm-hmm. And so actually, this prejudice in regard to Heidegger, that Heidegger has to do with here, Heidegger's philosophy, or very difficult, all in the mind and only intellectual and so on, is at least in this instance, absolutely wrong, because Heidegger criticizes that in a way. And in terms of the dream work, becoming grounded would be called a growth direction. Some people might not need it. Some people might be too grounded and never get high, so to speak. But for most people, this is probably a growth direction. And if it's right that they mean the same, Heidegger means the same as the human potential movement, then it would be an idea to work from both sides on this development, on this growth direction, also from the philosophical side by those insights from Heidegger, and also with exercises, body work that might be grounding. And I think we can find a kind of, or we can call that a kind of syndrome. I think there is a kind of syndrome in our culture, which is like this metabolic syndrome in medicine, like with high blood pressure and cholesterol and so on. This is obesity or so, and we can find a kind of syndrome of calculative thinking, dreams of being in the top floor and not getting down, shallow breathing only in the chest, not in the abdomen, and many other things in our culture, which all contribute to a prevalent way of being in our modern times. And this, if this is a syndrome, one can work on it from many sides, maybe should work on it from many sides. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for watching and listening.